My little itty-bitty bruiser buddies.
United States heavyweight champion from Brazil.
The world's heavyweight champion from the AWA, Nick Bockwinkel.
The Midwest supporting, bruiser loving, positivity spreading, world's most dangerous podcast. Join former pro wrestler and promoter Dave Dynasty as he supports and promotes Midwest Pro Wrestling. Keep on growing with the Midwest Express. This is the Dave Dynasty Show.
Greetings and welcome to the Dave Dynasty Show. I am your host, Dave Dynasty. Thank you for joining us yet again for another week of all the Midwest Pro Wrestling goodness that you can stand. Well, maybe not that you can stand, but that we've got to give you. How about that? It's a heaping dose. That is for sure every week to you for free on all of your favorite podcast platforms. We have a good show this week. Our guest is Christopher Michael Lotus. You're going to hear an interview with him in a little bit. Might be a name you're not super familiar with, but you should be. Guy's been doing it in the ring for a long time and been doing it well. He may not recall, but many, many years ago when he was just first starting, and I was just first starting, we worked some shows together here in Columbus for HPW. He came over and did some shows, and we shared a locker room there. I don't think we ever actually worked together, did anything together. I don't think I managed anybody, anything like that, but we were in the same locker room. He may not recall me, but that's cool. He's gone on to do some great things, and, well, why would he remember little old Dave from 15 years ago? We also have Brad Anderson on the show. Brad's another guy that I encountered long ago, working some shows. And also, when I was running some shows, we're going to bring him in and use him, and things didn't work out. We were having trouble getting dates, and then all kinds of stuff. Well, we'll talk about my past as a promoter someday, back in the day when I ran Midwest Regional Wrestling briefly. Just I don't even want to say a cup of coffee doing that, but a sip of coffee. So I've dabbled in a little bit of everything, right, here in the pro wrestling game. Done it all, from managing to wrestling to promoting to whatever, everything in between. I've made flyers, programs. I have done it all. Ring crew, done it all. And coming up on Friday, January 25th, I'm returning to something I haven't done in a while. But I am going to be ring announcing for Forever Pro Wrestling's debut in Scottsburg, Indiana. That is Friday, January 25th. The doors will open at 6 p.m. Bell time will be at 7. It's going to be a fun show. Come out and see it. Lots of great action. You'll see Chris Caliber, Levi Everett, Percy Davis, Custom Made, many, many more. It's going to be a fun show. And I'll be there, right? I'll be ring announcing, and I'll be there to mingle. So if you're there, come say hi. Shake my hand, do whatever, but come out and support the show and support the event. Should be fun, like I said, and I return to ring announcing, something I haven't done for quite a while, but I'm very, very excited to do it. You can look them up on Facebook, look up Forever Pro, and follow that for the event page and all the information about matches and et cetera, et cetera. I also have some other exciting news, some really, really big exciting news. Unfortunately, I can't reveal it just yet. It's not 100% completely finalized. Will be soon, within the week. It will be out there. But I'm very, very superstitious about things like that. I don't want to show my hand before it's confirmed on things because I feel like I'm going to jinx myself, right? But this is a very, very exciting thing. Very much looking forward to doing. You guys are going to love it. So listen up through the week. Watch all my social media and everything, and you'll be able to hear that when I announce it and when it's out there. Again, it will be a very fun thing that I know you will enjoy. I got to give a special congrats to my buddy Mance Warner for winning the CZW Championship. Now, I'm not a big CZW guy because I don't really get into that style of wrestling. I'm not here again. I'm not here to knock it or say anything. I have my opinions, and so be it. But that's not what I'm here for. But it is no doubt. It's no doubt a prestigious title, right? I mean, lots of guys have held that, and it's one of the top indie companies in the country. So good to see Mance achieving the success. We've told you years ago, right? I knew Mance Warner was going to be a thing. We're going to be a star, and man, it just keeps getting brighter and brighter. If you don't know Mance Warner, and I can't believe you don't, make sure you check him out, look him up, watch some of his stuff. If you go to and well, if you go to an indie show pretty much anywhere now, there's a good chance you're going to see Mance Warner. But he's also showing up on all kinds of iPay-per-views, streaming services, and everything else. And you can also go in the archives and look at some of our very early episodes for the first bit, I don't know, first year and a half, something like that. Mance was on the show every week, giving some Warner's wisdom. Unfortunately, Mance just too busy to do it anymore, man. He's got the schedule, and it's killing him, all the travel and everything else. And something had to give, so we always appreciated his time, and we stay in touch. But he couldn't do the Warner's wisdom anymore because of his schedule. But it's good to see him out there doing what he does, and seeing all the new eyes that are getting falling upon him, and getting to see what us here in the Midwest have known for a while now, that Mance is a superstar in the making. And this is just another step. It's going to be bigger and bigger and brighter for Mance. So congrats to him. Good to see that. And that's it for now, right? That's all for the opening. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll have that first interview with Christopher Michael Lotus. So stick around. If you are looking for the best books, DVDs, and posters on classic wrestling nostalgia, then you want to visit crowbarpress.com. There are literally dozens of titles there, including biographies of the likes of Bruiser Brody, Ole Anderson, Ivan Koloff, and of course, Dick the Bruiser, as we've spoke about here on the Dave Dynasty Show. You want to visit crowbarpress.com for all of your classic wrestling nostalgia needs. Again, that is crowbarpress.com.
And welcome back to the Dave Dynasty Show. I'm your co-host, Ike Isaacs, and today we are joined by Christopher Michael Lotus. How are we doing today?
Doing just fine, my friend. How are you doing today?
Hey, rocking on, living the American dream. Cannot complain, I should say. Well, hey, we'll go ahead and jump right into it. So, Christopher, tell us where you are from.
I'm actually originally from Hamilton, Ohio, born and raised.
Hamilton, Ohio. Wow, so I've never been to Hamilton, Ohio. What was it like growing up there? Did you play any sports?
I did. I played a couple years of football. I played a year of baseball. I had 2 years of actual wrestling in me, not including the actual wrestling I'm doing now.
Right.
I actually have a year of basketball in me as well.
Wow. So you got a little bit of good background in sports, right on. Well, let me ask you, growing up in Hamilton, were you a fan of wrestling?
I was actually a huge fan of wrestling since probably about 4 years old. I remember Hulk. I wasn't even Hulk Hogan then, so I go back pretty far when it comes to early age.
No, right, absolutely. And it's a good thing, having that early experience with wrestling, it kind of builds a good passion, I would say. Let me ask you, you mentioned a couple names, but who were your favorites as a kid? Did you have any that you were like, oh, yes, I need to see them when I watch next?
Surprisingly, I did see most of my favorites. Bret Hart was one of my original favorites. I love the excellence of execution. I really loved watching the Rockers back in the day as a tag team before they split up, and Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty went their own ways. Back in the day, big men, I loved Big Van Vader, especially when he was in Japan. I could go a list on and on of some favorites of mine, but those at least the three I mentioned, are definitely standouts when I was growing up.
No, absolutely.
As a kid, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, Bret Hart's amazing. So don't blame me there. So then let me ask you this, because obviously you watch wrestling, love it as a kid, but eventually, as you grow up, go through high school, go through college, whatever it may be, you go from being a fan to being a part of wrestling. So at what point did you know that you wanted to actually wrestle and that wrestling had officially hooked you?
Surprisingly, when I was 16, you're probably going to hear this out of a lot of people that got involved in backyard. Sometime in the late 90s, backyard was a big deal, honestly. It got all over the news. People were making some big fuss about it. Eventually, I just got out of it and followed a buddy of mine named Tim Manelli. You'll know him as Pompano Joe out on the Indies.
Oh, yeah.
He got in about a month ahead of me, and I just started following him in, and honestly, I just loved what I was doing and kept doing it for a good 15 years now. I've
heard people, obviously, backyard US wrestling was huge in the 90s. I remember that was when that big push to don't try this at home was, put up before every episode of, Raw. So I remember that. But, so obviously, like you said, you did a little bit of backyard wrestling, but like you said, you decided to take the professional path. So tell us a little bit about your training. Who did you train with?
I actually went to Bone Crusher's National Pro Wrestling Training Center and trained under the man himself, Roger Ruffin. That was it was late 2002 when I finally, officially started getting it moving. It was probably about March, April was when I actually started having some of my first matches. It was quite of a long journey, 15 years so far. I think I'm working on 16 that's coming in. But very honored to be trained by, Roger Ruffin. He's been a referee for the World Wrestling Federation at the time. You know it as WWE now, World Wrestling Entertainment. I've learned so much from Roger. I've gotten so many different bookings, wrestled so many different places, met so many different people through this man. I can't thank him enough just being on here. And even on this podcast, he's probably a good reason why I'm even on here today.
Well, I don't know if we're famous enough to get that kind of recognition quite yet, but we definitely appreciate that. Thanks, Roger. No, I kid. But let me ask you this, because I guess the next step, kind of in the timeline of your life, you love wrestling, you do some backyard wrestling, you train to do wrestling, and eventually you have your first match. So I guess following along here, what was your first match like? Do you remember that?
Take it in there. My first match was actually a tag match, and getting into the wrestling business when you're barely 3 months in, right. You go out in front of a crowd, you're automatically scared. You're ready to just pee your pants. And to this day, I swear to you, I could go to the bathroom right before I go out in front of a crowd and still have to go to the bathroom right as I'm going outside to the crowd. But my first match was a tag match. Actually we didn't do that bad. And, I kept continuing to get bookings right after that. So that match, but, I can barely remember half of their names. So I don't think half of them are even still around anymore, to tell you the truth.
Like I was going to say, it's probably been a hot minute since that happened. So,
it's been a real hot minute, honestly. You're looking at least March, maybe April 2002. So definitely a long time for me.
It's weird to think that 2002 is 16 years ago, soon to be 17 years ago.
Yeah, I think I saw a meme online today. It's like 30 years ago, and guys like us are thinking 30 years ago was like 1970. You know what I mean? We're still living in that like early 2000s era where, the NWO just ended and all this new stuff's coming out. WWE bought everything out, and all this transition. And, honestly, it paid off in the end because look how much wrestling's on TV. There's so much wrestling out there on the independents to get out there. Wrestling's a hot item right now, and I'm glad to see it. Glad to be a part of it, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was what I was going to say. I mean, like independent wrestling, and I think we have a lot to thank for how hot it is now. Part of that is like everything that happened, like you mentioned, late 90s, early 2000s with wrestling. But you're right, independent wrestling is explosive right now, which actually is a good transition because I was going to ask you, being a part of independent wrestling, you're kind of on the inside. You see the workings of independent wrestling. What would you say is the best and worst part about being in this business?
The best part about being in this business is you can really open your mind to any kind of artwork you want to put into it. If you put the hours into it, you put every bit of your ounce of soul into this business, it'll pay off in the end. I've met so many of my idols, so many of the people that I just looked up to over the years. I've even met current superstars. I had a little run-in at Rockstar where I met quite a few individuals that helped me out in the long run, especially this year. I'd have to say the best part about this, just the people you meet, the experiences, the road trips, what you can learn if you listen, what to be prepared for. I mean, it could really make you a more responsible person if you follow the right path in the right direction. And sometimes people get lost in that, and you will, and it's everybody. But honestly, definitely the people. I mean, if you meet the right people, you introduce yourself in a way, and you hold yourself to a manner where it's responsible enough, you'll make it anywhere in wrestling. But to answer your second question, the worst part about wrestling would probably be anybody's ego. A couple years back, I mean, I got myself in trouble, I actually left the business for a couple of years because, I just let my head get to myself. I was on fire. I was definitely hitting a prime point. And I just, you can get lost in what you do. And if you let yourself get away from what's important, you're really going to lose yourself. You're really going to lose your spot. You're going to lose a lot of things. And I lost a lot of friends for a long time just being an egotistical maniac in a sense. And to say if anything's the worst part of wrestling is just how you display your attitude sometimes. Just make sure you bear down, you buckle down. Not everything's going to go your way every night. Not everything you're going to be prepared for. Some things, you can just have a bad day or an off day. That's going to happen to everybody. But as long as you breathe, you take your time, you wait, you just be patient in this business, great things are going to happen. And a lot of great things have happened to me over this year in general. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And I was going to say, you've been wrestling for a long time, so definitely I feel like you've had enough experience that you could definitely say, yeah, this is the best and worst part. And, I've actually had quite a few people mention the phrasing of, people's ego kind of being the downfall of professional wrestling just in general. So definitely that's great words of advice too for any young guys or young talent out there listening, of course.
Well, I hope so. They're listening. You need to listen in this business. There's a lot of great veterans that can still help you out. That Bob Evans is all over the place on Facebook trying to give the good word. And I met Bob Evans quite a few times down at Primetime Wrestling recently, and that guy is awesome. He's lovable. He's nice. I caught him dancing in the back locker room to some of the music. He's just an ordinary guy, but, he's just one of those veterans that's been around. He's had his rough days. He's even said it online, and even to this day, he's still getting bookings just trying to make up for himself. And in a way, I want to follow that path.
Right. No, absolutely. And also, what a fantastic name that Bob Evans is. But
Bob Evans is the man. Let's just face it. That guy is fun. If you've seen my Snapchats, you'd love it.
I've heard so much about that guy. I don't think I've ever talked to him. I don't think I've ever met him. I've talked to a lot of people in the Midwest area. I have to tell Dave we need to talk to Bob Evans because I hear about him all the time from pretty much anybody I talk to. So, but
hey, Bob is out there, buddy. Definitely get a hold of Bob Evans and get him on the podcast, man. He's a great guy. I think he'd probably give you way better information than most veterans could today. He's definitely a real story. He's awesome.
Oh gosh. Well, Dave, I know you're listening to this as you're editing it, so you know what to do now. Anyways, so, but like I mentioned, you've been wrestling for a while, and we've kind of talked a lot about, kind of your progression from fan to wrestler to kind of learning the ways of the business, and as you still learn the ways of the business. But you've had a pretty great career so far, and with your experience, and I kind of see it already because you'd already kind of mentored a little bit during our conversation, but do you find yourself mentoring young guys now, trying to spread that good word, as you say?
Right now, you'd be surprised. I'm hanging out at Bone Crushers National Pro Wrestling Training Center Tuesdays and Thursdays when they have their trainings for the, whoever shows up in the Future Stars is what we call them.
Right.
I've always tried to pitch a good word. Usually I get a kind of a squad with us. We got about 20 to 30 students right now. So every once in a while I get kind of either stuck helping out with promos, I get stuck with chain work, I get stuck in a ring with Pompano trying to bump people around just to, safely do this business the way it's supposed to be done. You could find yourself doing a lot of things as long as you put the effort in. But I've been pretty much trying to stay pretty busy when it comes to, training students on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I've been in a ring at least every Saturday and Sunday for at least the last year, or at least trying to get even in more wrestling time here in the next year. But Tuesdays and Thursdays, I hit up the school and I keep my mind fresh. Even right now as we're talking, I've got NXT UK on, just kind of, in a sense, doing homework.
Right. Hey, you got to keep relevant with the kids these days, as they say.
I keep up with the pace.
Right.
Just like a new piece of art, you want to see it, right?
Exactly. That's what I say. But something I've learned, because I guess I'm the reverse of what of you, that because I never really knew about old wrestling until Dave was kind enough to show me kind of the golden age, if you will, prior to the 90s. Because all of my wrestling experience has been watching 90s and 2000s wrestling, so I never really saw anything before that. So I'm kind of the opposite. I know all the current stuff. I know nothing of the classics, if you will.
So you didn't see those early Royal Rumbles and some of the first WrestleManias?
No.
Wow, you missed a lot of good stories.
I did because look, I'm fairly young for this whole kind of thing. I was born in the '90s, so it was a little hard because at first, you didn't have the WWE network to show you all that stuff, if you will.
Yeah, you had VCRs and prayed to God your tape didn't get eaten inside of them.
That's right. I remember, because I've known Dave for a while. Dave, I remember tape trading back in the day and all that, and that was just wild to me to think that people used to do that. Now it's just like you can go.
You know what? You'd be surprised. I used to do that. I used to, when the internet first online, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like I used to just kind of tape swap or record, and, do with their Butler County sales or whatever websites they got where they tried to just sell personal items.
Right.
I was a decent part of that back in the day, trading tapes and all.
It's wild to think how technology's evolved, We can just go to the WWE network right now and just watch something from, 1985 if we wanted to. But back in the day, it took a lot of work to do that.
I mean, you were shipping packages, buying stamps, trying to mail the stuff out within the time frame. You were constantly messaging people like, yeah, it's on its way, brother. Here's the tracking, blah, blah, blah. And now today's wrestling, you literally turn on your internet, you turn on your TV, you hit a button or two, and you can watch damn near everything you watched as a kid just with a few clicks. Wow. Back in the day, you would have took a VCR, you would have had to wait about 15 minutes to run to 6 to 8 hour tape, and pray to God you're at the point where you want to watch.
Oh, man. All right, so enough of trying to make people feel old. I kid. No, so I guess to get a little back on track with wrestling nowadays. I mean, recently there has been a resurgence, I would say, of Midwest wrestling. I feel like the Midwest has, if you will, been slept on a lot in the previous years. But I feel like really everybody's representing the areas that they work for. But do you feel like that you're representing your area of expertise right now of where you live in the Midwest?
Well, I sure hope so. I mean, I've been getting booked a lot more lately. All of the PTW, Northern Wrestling Federation, they all take care of me. I have many of friends through this. I've networked many of friends. I've hopped in cars. I've been lucky. I haven't been lucky, but that's what we got to do out in this business. But the thing is, you just you put your good foot together. I try to post as much stuff about wrestling as I can, even on my storyboards, on my Instagram. Every day, even right now, I've uploaded a few things off from Primetime Wrestling. I just got like 5 minutes ago from their flyer. I just got booked for this Sunday. But do the best you can, even if you're just working out. Just show people what you're doing. Market yourself. Market who you're working for. Bob Evans teaches this. Is why I harpy him so much. I follow him a lot. Like, you have to put every bit of your effort into this. Like, there's just days, you go to your shoot job, and back in the day, and you wouldn't come home because you go to wrestling. Back when I first started in the early 2000s, Roger was running so much, like, I barely was home like a full day. I'd be at training, or I'd be at one of his shows, or I'd be at somebody he got me booked on for another show. But to answer your question, I go full value. I try to give you my all. There's not a fan that's ever came up to me displeased. Every booker I've ever worked for said thank you, shake my hand, hug me, introduce me to other people. I've hung out with most of the people that have ever paid me in this business at their homes. I've done everything I can for everybody, and to tell you the truth, 2018's paid off for me, and I'm hoping that 2019 has a little bit more to offer and pays off just the same way, because I feel pretty damn good about wrestling right now.
Hey, that's what I like to hear. That's exactly what I like to hear. That's the kind of representation we need more independent wrestling. I feel like if everybody did that, the product would be amazing, and I feel like not everybody wouldn't love everybody, but I feel like more people would have a little more love for the industry. But very glad to hear. But so this next question, I guess, to kind of move a little away from kind of what we've been talking about. Now, obviously, I have no idea. Me and Dave usually come up with the questions, and he usually kind of goes back and forth with whomever we're talking with about different questions to ask. So this is going to be new for me, so bear with me here. So apparently you've had some crisscross, if you will, some mashups with a man called Aaron Williams, whom I've talked to before. Tell us a little bit about that. Your guys' careers have crossed paths a couple times, so talk to us a little bit about Aaron Williams.
Well, tell you the truth, you're going to be surprised. Me and Aaron have only wrestled one match.
Really?
We wrestled out at Hits in Covington, Kentucky. It was one of probably my best matches in my career. I mean, the guy is incredible to work with. He will kick the living crap out of you, trust me. Aaron Williams, though, I met him about almost the first start of my career. It was like maybe my first year in, about 14 years ago. We stumbled across each other in Wilmington, Ohio. It's what we call barn wrestling. I think you've heard about Wilmington. Everything kind of fell apart down there. It's not really the biggest economy. I don't want to diss Wilmington, but we used to have tons of fans come out there when we roared out there so many years ago. It's been a little rough lately, but it's getting better. Right. But to go back to Aaron here, Aaron I met about 14 years ago. He had really long hair, which is probably hard to imagine since he's bald now.
That's what I was
me and Aaron actually kind of like started training together a tad bit in the NWF when he first started. He didn't come around a whole lot. I think he was around for about a good 2 to 3 months. But, we worked together and, inside rings, not professionally against each other, but, we've had training with each other. I know there's like a few car trips in there early on. And we actually taught each other some of our arsenal, on the top rope stuff. We were working on springboards, just getting comfortable on the ropes back in the day. But as for Aaron Williams, I'll cross his path again soon enough. If you didn't hear the announcement, Race Federation, you're going to see a triple threat match between me, Aaron Williams, Jay Donaldson, December the 29th, to get that out there. So we will cross paths again in a different match.
Right.
But Aaron's probably one of the best guys I've met in the scene. Like, he is incredible to work with. He's incredible to watch. You will see all kinds of different things out of him, and you will see he's his own piece of art. Right. He can draw up anything, and it will look fantastic. And it's probably why you see him to be on the scene. I think he deserves even more on this scene as hard as he works. And, knowing him personally, I'm glad to see where he's at. But I hope he's ready for the 29th, because you know what? Where he's at's where I want to be at, and I know that's where everybody else wants to be at, and that's be noticed and be out there. You want your name in the spotlights. You want your names on them flyers. You want your pictures hung up. You want people to talk about you as much as they can, even though, like right now, it's my interview. You're asking me about Aaron Williams. But, other than that, Aaron's probably one of the greatest guys I've met in a long time. He's down to earth. He's just really good and special. There's not too many guys I could call that, personally, there's just awesome people, down to earth, good. He's definitely one of those guys I can say that about.
No, absolutely. And I think it's one of the best compliments you can give another person is, having that kind of down to earthness and that, goodness about them. So, and that's something we've heard a lot about him before. So obviously it's good to hear, of course. But I guess to switch gears a little bit, we talked a lot about wrestling, your career, kind of from not necessarily start to current, I should say. About to start to finish, and I was going to say that's about to get real dark. Not finished yet, but to get a little more personal, kind of switch tracks a little bit. A lot of people obviously have probably seen you in the ring, seen what you do wrestling wise. But tell us a little bit about what you're like outside of the ring. What do you do to keep yourself busy other than wrestle?
Outside of the ring, I'm a very big Marvel fan. I have a huge comic collection. I actually like tabletop board games. I like tabletop card games. I played a lot of euchre and poker and spades back in the day. I watch a lot of wrestling on my off time. This past year, when I got back into wrestling about a year and a half ago, when I got back into it anyway, I actually started paying for a personal trainer. So I see her about at least 3 times a month, and I've been working out pretty hardcore lately. If anybody's been paying attention to my Facebook page, I've actually made it to the gym for the last at least 3.5, 4 months every day, just to kind of bust myself up and get into the shape I want to be in and kind of catch up for the years I've missed. I have a 5-year-old daughter. I'm married. My 5-year-old is a gymnast, a level 2 gymnast right now. She's actually killing it. She's won a couple of ribbons already, a couple first place ribbons. My wife is, her name's Jessica Lotus. I actually met her in the Northern Wrestling Federation as a trainee in about 2001. She was actually married before. She got divorced in that time. 2002 or 2003, and we kind of hooked up, and we've been steady ever since. But other than that, yeah, I think that sums up about everything.
That's what I like. That's awesome. Obviously, I like to hear that. You keep yourself busy outside of wrestling, of course. And I like to hear that you're a comic book fan. I myself, a huge comic book nerd. Although, I guess I'm not supposed to like you because you like Marvel. I prefer DC, but I guess that's.
I don't have any hatreds towards DC. I just wish DC kind of focused on their comics a little bit better now than they did back in the day.
Right.
Like some of that new 52 stuff they brought out was just crap. I'm sorry. The Superman in a pair of pants, and there was too many changes. It was just trying to be too hip to today when it wasn't just trying to be Superman or Batman, or just stick to the original stuff and you'll never fail.
Right. It's actually weird because one of Dave's previous ventures, obviously he's done a lot of different things in his time, but he actually owned a comic book store years ago and actually worked with him there. Weirdly enough, we started a comic book store right when the New 52 opened and when that came out, so we kind of got to see all that junk come down the pipeline, and it was really weird because nobody was like buying hardly any of it. Like maybe
I got sucked in a little bit, but after about 4 or 5 comics of each one, I gave in. It was just a little too cheesy and too hip to what people are doing today. You need to focus on what they are. They're superheroes. They're not trying to be hip. They're trying to be them.
Right.
And they're trying to understand them. That's one of the biggest comic questions or comic phrases you should ask yourself. What is Superman? What is Batman? What is Aquaman? Who are these people? They're not the people that are hip today. They're not around those people. That's why those comics didn't make any sense.
Right. I gotcha. But yeah, and I guess before we move on from that, obviously you like Marvel, and I love Marvel as well. I think Marvel movies have blown DC movies out of the water. Hoping Aquaman turns that around. But do you have
go see Aquaman? You'll like it.
I'm pretty
it's
pumped
good.
for it.
I give it my praise. As much as I don't like the Aquaman comics, trust me, I'm not the biggest Aquaman fan. The movie was really good.
Look, I like Jason Momoa. I liked him in Justice League, so I mean, like I said, I'm gonna give it a shot, make sure it's good. But I guess a little more direct at Marvel. What's your favorite Marvel character? Like your favorite superhero? If you had to just pick one, of course.
Oh, my favorite Marvel character, definitely Captain America, baby. Steve Rogers.
Steve Rogers, that's right. Love Captain America. You think he's gonna die in this next Avengers movie?
No, there's no thinking. There's really no thinking about this. Everybody knows. I've seen it on Twitter. His post about him saying goodbye to the Marvel universe. I'm really gonna hate watching it. I've kind of seen the comic books where Steven Rogers was killed in Civil War, and I know they've done it in several others. And I'm probably going to cry, being my favorite of all time. Like, I don't know. Your favorite person, you don't want to see him die, but in a sense, I kind of have an idea of how he's going to die, and I'm not going to give that away because I don't want to ruin it for people. And being a guy that's dug into several different stories of how this Infinity Gauntlet could go and what could happen with, the rewind of how everybody's going to get kind of saved, I don't think people are really going to like how he's going to die, and I'm sure as hell not. So,
and like, I think I want to say the same thing, but man, he tweeted that, and my thought process was, this is a red herring. He's just trying to throw people off track. But I don't know. He may die. But mark my words, I have my doubts. Let's hope at least.
Well, he's the one that's willing to sacrifice himself at. I don't think people really. I think people underestimate that factor. There's a reason he became Captain America. Anybody willing to jump on a grenade, jump on that gauntlet, and try to save everybody.
Well, everybody who's watching, if you've not watched these movies, you probably have no idea what we're talking about. But watch these movies, for the love of God. Watch these movies; they're amazing.
Catch up on your nerd stuff.
Right, exactly. Catch up on these damn movies. Oh my gosh. So. But anyways, I guess to kind of revert ourselves back to, wrestling, because I suppose this is a wrestling podcast, I guess. I could talk about wrestling all day, but I could most certainly talk about comic books and comic movies, video games, all of that. I literally a pop culture whore. I literally will watch anything pop culture, and it's just crazy. But I guess to kind of ask you kind of another thing to sort of wind down it a little bit, talk about wrestling a little more. But you mentioned obviously 2018 is coming to a close. It's December the 12th today at least. So we're almost done with 2018, which is wild. But 2019 is right around the corner. What are your goals for 2019?
Definitely more wrestling bookings. I want to see my name out there. I want to see my name almost as much out there as Aaron Williams, even though I know that's kind of impossible, but it's not impossible. I have a lot, to prove to people out there. 2018 was kind of a revamp for me. That was 2017 late. I got back into the ring. 2018, I wanted to get into better shape and look better and feel better, which I did. But 2019, I'd like to see my name in a little bit more lights and a little bit more of those posters out there. I'd like to see myself out there, period. I want Christopher Michael Lotus to be that household name you see like anybody else out here in the Midwest territory. It's not hard to do. It'll take a little time, but like I said, time's my essence. And in case you didn't notice, it's time to take notice in Christopher Michael Lotus.
That's absolutely right. And I guess kind of along that same track, you'd mentioned a couple dates that you have coming up, but I don't know if you just kind of want to slide out some dates for people who may want to come see you wrestle.
Well, of course, we've got Bone Crushers National Pro Wrestling Training Center this Saturday. That is a school show. You can come see me and the rest of the NWF superstars there. We also have a Future Star show coming up the Sunday after. That's December the 16th. To see all them young kids we've been busting around. They're pretty awesome, trust me. December the 29th, that was what I just mentioned a little earlier, that we're going to be in Fairfield, Ohio. You're going to see the Monster Abyss in action that night. He's tagging up with Stewie Staggs and Dustin Jobs in a 6-man tag against Wildcat Chris Harris, Anthony Bryant, and Lord Crew. But the stipulation of this match is if Lord Crew, Anthony Bryant, and Wildcat Chris Harris lose, they got to disband. But also that night, you're going to see the match I'm involved in, which is a 3-way dance. You've got myself going against the 22-year-old stud Jay Donaldson and the baddest man alive, Aaron Williams. Also, the start of next year, I've got an early booking coming up. It'll be January the 5th. We're returning to the Ludlow Theater. We haven't really confirmed any matches for that yet. I'll have to get back to you. You have to check on that one. And actually, I think I got booked for this Sunday. I just checked that. I'll be at the PTW Sportatorium out there. I don't know what match I'm involved in, but I know we've got some interview to be having here because we keep getting called out by the Hollywood agency out there with Adam Swayze and Big Cuz. Me and Alex Angel got to get our stuff together and see if we're going to go in this tag match for the IPPV coming up for December the 23rd. I think that nails them all, my friend.
Absolutely. And you actually mentioned a name, Adam Swayze. Actually, I talked to him a little bit, not too long ago, actually. And, yeah, he's a character, man. I'll tell you what. So, wouldn't mind seeing you guys get in that ring and you bust him up a little bit. Wouldn't mind that.
Oh, trust me, I'll hit him once and say you told me to. So.
I guess one last thing for you, and I know you're probably going to be like, oh, man, now I got to list off a bunch more stuff. But for people who want to follow your career in 2019 and for people who are not already following you, what are some social medias? You'd mentioned you have some Snapchat and your Instagram and your face space and whatnot. So if you want to go ahead and throw those out there for everybody.
You called them face space. You can find me on a hashtag as, in case you didn't notice, it's the first letters in that. And it's, you can have a little hashtag with Lotus, Lotus. You can find me at NWF Lotus on Instagram. You can just find me under Christopher Lotus on Facebook. And let's see, we got Snapchat as well. That's also NWF Lotus, so it's pretty easy and pretty simple. Not too many different names.
There you go.
But you can find me on any of those. Friend me, share me, retweet me, upload me, take notice.
Take notice. It's wild because sometimes they'll have people come on here and who will have all their handles will be the same name, and then sometimes it'll be like, yeah, my Facebook's this, and my Instagram's this completely other thing, and my Twitter's this completely other thing, and I'm like, nobody's gonna remember that. Come on now. But anyways, so I guess just to kind of wrap up a little bit, I want to thank you for obviously coming on here, having some fun, just talking to us about, wrestling, comic books and comic movies. But thank you a lot for coming on here. It's obviously greatly appreciated to get to talk to some talent, of course. And so we definitely are very grateful for that. So thank you ultimately.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. I've been following you guys for a little while now. I was actually pretty happy to be on tonight. I really do appreciate that, guys.
Whatever happened to you?
All right, and we are back with Whatever Happened To. Second, where we catch up on some often overlooked names from Midwest Wrestling's past.
I'm doing pretty good. How about
Living the
you?
American Dream. It's Friday. Can't complain. But let's go ahead and jump right into it, Brad. Tell everybody, how did you get started in professional wrestling?
Just like everybody, I was just a fan as a child. Watched it ever since I was little. I think the one match that actually got me hooked on wrestling the most is when Paul Orndorff turned on Hulk Hogan. It was a beautiful thing. Then after that, I just, between my amateur wrestling in high school, I just stuck with it.
Wow. So, and of course, you had that love for wrestling starting out, like you said, a fan, which you're right. I feel like everybody who's ever gone into wrestling, I think nobody I've ever talked to didn't like wrestling prior to going into wrestling. So, pretty good trend there. But, so obviously you go from fan to start training. Tell us a little bit about what was that like?
Well, I actually started my training at the Tyndall Armory with Mike Samples. Actually, Mike Samples actually took over my training. I did the rookie mistake of paying a certain individual to train me in full, and then they skipped town. But since Mike Samples saw the hard work I did, almost always there, putting ring up, putting chairs up, he continued my training.
Wow. Yeah, and that's an age-old story. Independent wrestling is the lovely folk who make you pay for your training, and like you said, skip town. I've heard that story too many times to count, and I hate it every time because it sucks.
Oh yeah.
But well, it's good though that you had somebody like Mike, because I've heard different stories about Mike Samples. Actually, I've had some people who I've talked to who have worked with him or alongside him, and I've heard a lot of great things. Obviously, so sounds like you probably had some pretty good training for sure.
Oh yeah, Mike was good to me. He trained me good. He was also good about bringing in talent to help train. I mean, he's brought Rip Rogers in to help out on occasions. Nightmare Danny Davis has popped up there on occasion. So, yeah, he took care of us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously, you kind of a progression of wrestling is, you start out as a fan, you start your training, getting into the groove of things, and eventually you have your first match. Do you remember what your first match was?
Yeah, actually, being a fan and not actually having a gimmick yet, I was actually thrown into a barbed wire. They were short-handed, and I believe it was Sean Casey in the back that looked at me and said, "Throw this dude in. He actually looks like a wrestler." So into the battle royal, and got pretty much whooped all over the place, and actually had Flash Flanagan take the barbed wire right across my forehead. He was like, "Welcome to wrestling," and just ripped it right across there.
Wow. So, yeah, that's quite the introduction into professional wrestling. I mean, I've heard about people, starting in battle royals, but yeah, barbed wire battle royal, that's a step above.
Yes, it is.
Wow. So you got a pretty, I guess, trial by fire start to wrestling, if you will. So, and obviously you stuck with it. So tell us a little bit. We've kind of gotten an idea of how you started in the business. But tell us some of the more memorable people you worked with, some of the memorable places you've gone. Just tell us some people or some places that you've worked over the last, few years.
Well, I've actually started and wrestled under a mask for quite a long time, and it wasn't until one of Diamond Dan's students, Scott Magnum. I saw him in training one day, and I made a comment. I said, "Yes, experience," and I tagged with him. So one day he gave me a call and said, "Hey, I got an opportunity." And then since then, him and I have traveled from Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania. Got a lot of experience of working with Dave Bowers, bounty hunter. Him and his buddy Nitro, Phil Mahan.
Right.
So we were in CIW for quite a long time. Of course, we've been in the range with Demolition, Rock and Roll Express. So we've all over Michigan.
Wow.
I'd probably have to say one of the best things that ever happened in Michigan is when Shockwave actually split. I went a back injury, came back a few years later. My former tag partner was the heavyweight, a ladder match for both belts on the line.
Oh, wow.
And by the end of that, I wasn't going to move for a week. We beat each other senseless.
Wow. And so, and that's, you always hear like stories about kind of, tag team versus tag team, like, you're the same team originally. And those always seem to be like the best matches, I feel like, because those are always the ones where you can like really just, you can go all out and the other person's not going to fault you for it because you've worked with them so much. So those are always like the best matches, I feel like.
Oh yeah. I mean, we've probably wrestled each other probably about well over a dozen times on the singles match, and it's just like each match it just seemed better and better and better. To me, it was never one of those, should have been a curtain jerker match.
You're not like, oh yeah, we should have just gotten in, gotten out real quick and called it a wrap.
Yeah. Well, it was one of the things that was taught to us back when I was training. If the crowd's dead, get out.
Right.
And it seems like every time him and I wrestled each other, the crowd was always popping. So we kept going.
That's obviously not to be rude to any current talent out there or to other people, but I have been to some shows where they probably could have used that advice. If the crowd's dead, get out of there. Unfortunately, I feel like not enough people use that as a working motto these days. I feel like that's kind of a lost art in wrestling is spatial awareness.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've been on some shows where, if the crowd was dead and they were still in there and didn't get the cue, the locker room would clear out on them. They would come in and clear that ring.
They're like, if you're not going to pick it up, we'll make sure you pick it up. Don't worry.
Yep, absolutely. In and out. Get out.
And that's, again, it's things are a lot different, I feel like, and that's one of those things you should bring back.
Oh yeah,
the crowd's not popping out ring.
Well, there is a lot of things I've seen, and this, I don't want to take away nothing from the younger kids these days, but some of the lost arts back when I was being trained is lost. Right. I mean, I was always told you show up to an event unless you're showing up in gimmick. You dress nice out of respect for the promoter. I don't see that. Then I also see these young kids, or as I call it, they're spot junkies. They have to get in 101, what I would consider a finisher, during the match, where I would rather take one good bump, roll out the ring, and involve the crowd, tell the story, get the crowd involved.
Right.
Because some of those things are just lost these days.
And that's actually what I was going to kind of bring up is I'm not sure if you keep up with the current product. I don't know if you watch wrestling currently, but I didn't know because you kind of mentioned a couple things there, a couple of the lost arts, if you will. But obviously, you've wrestled, you've been around for a little while, so you've kind of seen some progression. You've probably seen wrestling progress and evolve over time. But what do you think? Do you think that the evolution has been good for the industry, or do you think that it's lost so much that where you're kind of losing too much for it to continue to be good?
some of it has gone downhill. If they would take what they're doing, all those big moves that ooh and awe the crowd,
Right.
but tell the story with it and involve the crowd. Don't just try to see how many of those ooh and ah moments you can get.
Right.
Up to it. I mean, because these young kids, they're sitting on watching them actually do some of these moves. But there is a thing called overkill, and that's usually what they're doing.
No, absolutely. I would definitely agree with you. I can't remember who it was I was talking to. But I always like to make a joke. Like, when I was like a kid, I remember watching, Shawn Michaels, end matches with super kick. Like, that was something
Right.
that happened all the time. Shawn Michaels would end a match, super kick, cut and clean, we're good to go. But days I go to an independent show, I see somebody take 33 super kicks in a row, and they pop back up and powerbomb somebody. You know what I mean? Like, it's,
Oh, yeah.
and not to say it's not entertaining, because it can be. I mean, like you said, not to take away from what people do now, but for sure it's different.
Mm-hmm. I'll say that. Like, I watched one show. The finish was where they put a chair between the second and top rope in the corner. Reversed it, schoolboy. There was the pin. But what sucked about it is the match before, this guy took like 4 or 5 chair shots and got up like he was Superman.
Right.
That kind of killed the other finish.
You're like, we need to have a little bit of consistency.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's another thing too is that like you said, consistency be lacking sometimes. Like you say, somebody will take 13 chair shots and it's no big deal. But then, like you said, it's you turn around and use a similar spot and it puts somebody out. So, like, obviously not to dwell on it too much, but like you said, the things have definitely changed quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
But so I guess to kind of move on a little bit there, I mean, something else to kind of talk about. We quite a bit about, your early career, getting trained, getting into the business. Some of the people you got to work with, some of the great people you got to meet. You talked a little bit about Shockwave. Now, this is something I have no idea about. Dave threw this question in here, so definitely fill me in. Tell us about Judo Master. What is Judo Master?
Okay, Judo Master was my very first real gimmick. And actually, in Indiana, he ran strong. I mean, matter of fact, Rob Kincaid, years ago, brought back, as we all know, Circle City Wrestling.
Right.
He gave me a call and said, he's been trying to get a hold of me, got a hold of Steve Branham. I never knew that Rob Kincaid, when he first started, I was one of the people he enjoyed watching. So he had to bring me back for Circle City Wrestling. I was actually on because the man was a good man. But as in the start of Judo Master, and it's a funny story on how I started. When Mike Samples was training us, he kept asking everybody, what are you good at? What do you do? How can we build your character around that? I kept saying, I don't know. So I came up with like I said, being a fan, I came up with the name. I took 2 of my favorite wrestlers and slapped their first name and last name together. Came up with Randy Gilbert. Horrible thing I've ever done now that I thought back at it. But one practice, I sat there and told my Samples, I said, hey, I'm not going to be able to make Saturday's practice. I have my judo state finals. And he stared there and looked at me and goes, what'd you just say? I said, I have my judo state finals. And he about did everything except call me a dumbass. Because that's when Judo Master was born. Started off, didn't wear a mask, was just wearing my regular judo gi. It was actually Madman Pondo that actually gave me real wrestling boots instead of my high school shoes. So, and that right there just started the beginning of Judo Master, and he just kept evolving from there, realizing that, okay, no one's going to believe this guy as a Judo Master So let's put a mask on them. That just changed the whole dynamics of it.
Right. And I honestly, it's funny how, things can just fall into place. You never expect it to fall into place, but it just falls right into place.
No. And I tell you what, I had a great time paying my respects to Rob at the Thanksgiving show at WCWO, where I've actually teamed up with a former opponent, Baron, and we just had fun, a three-way tag match.
Bring back Judo Master. That's what I like to hear.
Yep. Oh, yeah. When Judo Master actually retired, I went out because I had both hips replaced. So everybody kept saying, he ain't going to do nothing in wrestling ever again. Of course, a buddy of mine, and quote, no one ever fully retires.
Yep.
And he's right. Tom and Troy Van Zant have been nice. They've let me come to All-Star Pro Wrestling and just practice during their practice nights. So I kept rolling around there. Got back in the ring a few times. Went back to Michigan in October for the Cassidy Memorial Battle Royal show. So I still dabble in it.
Yeah, I've actually, I think pretty much every person that I've ever talked to who was a wrestler or kind of slowed down wrestling says you never retire. You always find some way to come back to wrestling in some way, shape, or form. Always.
Yeah. Well, and I did. I mean, went down for that hip surgery. I thought there was no way coming back, but then when I talked to my doctor and they told me the new design of the hip joint they put in, where the ball diameter is so much bigger, he goes, you'll break every bone in your body before that hip dislocates. Good enough for me.
Good enough for me. Let's test it out.
That's all I need to hear.
But that's good though, because then I guess that kind of leads into my next question for you. If you were still working at all, and obviously you still are working, do you have like dates in the future that you're planning on working here in the next couple of months or anything like that?
I haven't put anything on the books, but I would like to have a more consistent schedule come the first of the year.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, Judo Master does have a sort of top list of people he would like to wrestle again or wrestle for the first time. So, I mean, I would love to get back in the ring with Flash one more time.
Give him a little payback for that welcome gift.
Yeah, welcome to the business. Here's a barbed wire across your forehead. Yeah, I like that. See, I would also, Joey Kid Owens, I've never wrestled him. Known him for years. Great guy. Never wrestled him. Would like to actually get back in the ring and wrestle Chris Hero one more time. That was always a good match.
I'll say Chris here. He's in. He's still in NXT, and he's still in there as Cassius Ohno, isn't he?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
Well, either A, hopefully they start using him some more, or B, hopefully he can get himself back into the independents where you can see him a little more. Because I know that last time I heard us, I haven't really seen much of him, but I think that would be a really good match, and I'd bet.
Of course, I hope I'm not ribbing on him, but first time I wrestled him before he became Chris Hero, he was wife beater.
That is an interesting name. I never was that like his gimmick? I mean, not
that was him. He came to the ring in baggy balloons and a wife beater T-shirt, and his head was buzzed short.
Never in a million years would I have ever expected that. I've always known him with the long hair and all that.
Oh yeah,
that's wild. Well,
I hope I shoot on him there. Fun fact, yeah.
Oh man, I'll have to go look that up now. See if there's any That's wild. Oh gosh. So, I guess kind of in that same vein of, like you'd said, you kind of have some goals to work toward. You want to get back in the ring and get more consistency in 2019. Do you have any other kind of goals for 2019? Because obviously, like we said, 2018 is pretty much to a close. But other, you mentioned some people you want to get in the ring but any other goals that you may have for 2019 in regards to wrestling?
Only other personal goals that I would have for 2019 is, now that I'm of age, I would actually like to compete in the Masters divisions in the judo tournament. See, I'm currently the Associate Wellness Director at the Randsburg YMCA. I would like to move on up the ladder a little bit more.
Wow.
Those just little personal goals. And also, I'm an assistant wrestling coach for the New PAL elementary club. My son is his first year. I would actually like to continue seeing him wrestle and do better.
Absolutely. And those are some good both business and also personal goals. And I guess that kind of leads into the next thing I wanted to ask you about. When you wrestle, of course, you have your shoot job, and you kind of told us what your shoot job was. But also one thing we always like to do is that, people probably know you as, judo master, or they know you as the in-ring performer. Outside the ring, obviously, like you'd mentioned, Brad Anderson has a job. He has a kid, he has a family. But he also has hobbies and interests. So when you're not in the ring, what do you do to keep yourself busy? Other than work, of course.
Well, other than work and working with the kids with wrestling, I'm a hunter. I love hunting. I love fishing. Love kin. Just basic, good old, I guess you would say, a country boy lifestyle.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. We got a little bit of hunting, a little bit of fishing. I say it's been a long time since I've been fishing. Speaking of which, that sounds nice right now. I wish I could go somewhere warm, just do something like that.
Oh yeah.
So, but anyways,
you and me both. Even though I'm a country boy, I hate the cold. I'll go out hunting, but I don't enjoy it.
You're like, I'll go out hunting, but I'm not gonna enjoy it.
Nope.
Oh gosh. So I guess to kind of go back a little bit, we've talked quite a bit today about various aspects of your career, of course, and got to know a little bit about you outside of the ring, a little bit about what you do for a living, but also what you do for fun. But I guess one thing we like to also kind of ask, to sort of spend a little humor. You told some great stories. But do you have any funny road or show stories? That's something we like to kind of wrap on, is that the funny part of wrestling, because there's a lot of seriousness, a lot of bad stuff, unfortunately, but there's a lot of funny stuff. So do you have any of that nature? I
have a couple good ones, and I've actually, it's funny, I made joke to this to Tom Van Zandt when at practice one time. I told him, I heard your podcast. Can't really get into much about ribs, but I pulled a rib on him and Troy one time. When Magnum and I, we would go up to Michigan, and they were coming up with us. There was a trip once. We took them up there, and this was the first trip up there, and I'm like, okay, we're keeping kayfabe, and it's going to be fun. So we pulled up to the arena where we were wrestling at, and I'm like, hey, guys, this crowd is vicious. You cannot be seen with me, so I'm going to drive you down about 3 blocks down the road, probably in the worst part of town, too. And I dropped them off and circled back and get back in there. Now, we're all in the back just having a good time, waiting to see how long it takes these two to wheel their luggage all the way through that door. So they got a little fun road out of that one, which I enjoyed it. I'll say another one is when they were coming up with us, they had Bobby Black with them. Now, this one was a little over the edge, but I had to do it. Right. We were at Nasty Nick Monahan's place after the show. Just a little after party kind of thing. Right. And a few drinks and stuff, and I look over there, and I was like, what is that? And Nick brought over what was a penis squirt gun. I take this penis squirt gun, and I put it down my pants, and I unzipped it. And I go right over to Bobby Black, and I'm just acting like I'm taking care of business. And he turned around, and I was like, "Oh, Bobby," and I shot it right at him. This man jumped up. He looked like Fred Sanford with his hands flying up way over his head, about ready to fall over until I showed him, "Whoa, squirt gun."
You're like, I'm not really sure what he's about to do, but I'm going to make sure he doesn't do it.
Oh, yeah.
Swing on me.
But you know, I like pulling ribs on people. It's fun having them pulled on me. But yeah, the worst rib ever is when you do rib somebody and then it finally backfires on you. So for years, Scott Magdum and myself would wrestle Phil and Jay Bowers, Big Buck Flawless.
Mm-hmm.
They went mayhem. And we would always wrestle them. Every time I walk into the locker room, Magdum and I would be talking, and I'd always wait till I walked by them. And I was like, "Magdum, would you quit saying that Jay chops like a pussy?" and he was like, "I didn't say that." And he goes, "What?" Every show I did this. So one match, Jay grabs Magdum in the middle of the ring, and he yells out, "Here comes the chop." Now, if you've ever seen Jay, his hands are like meat hooks. I mean, they're twice as mine. And it cracked across his chest, and it ripped his chest open.
Ooh.
So we were doing a street festival, and we found a tattoo shop. And the tattoo artist was giving wrestlers tattoos for free because they're just a big fan. So I'm getting my tattoo done, and that night it was Jay and, what was it? Forget who his partner was at the time. But it was Hacksaw and myself going to wrestle him. And Jason Yang, that's who Jay's partner was. I had went to the tattoo shop and just got the outline done of my new tattoo on my left pec. And I walk and goes, "How's that tattoo?" And I go, "I got to finish it up afterwards." That time, Jay goes, "I don't have a hair on my ass to chop that tonight, do I?" And I just like, oh, holy hell, it backfired. So I just made sure I never got in the ring with Jay that night.
Right. You're just like, I need to stay as far away from this man as possible.
Yes, because it finally kicked on me after all those years of saying that Megan says he chops like a pussy.
Did he ever get you, or did you leave that battle?
No, I actually weaseled out of it. I'll be proud to say I weaseled getting that chop.
I can just imagine. I've never personally had a tattoo, but I've heard like people talk about just getting tattoos, and just like a fresh tattoo just getting chopped just sounds absolutely horrible.
Oh yeah, I'm just glad I didn't. Because I'm sitting there saying to myself that hand even grazes my chest. He's going to rip my skin open and cave it in.
You're like, game.
I mean, I have been chopped by some of the best choppers out there. Everybody is on top of that list.
Honestly,
and the last thing I wanted.
I'm sure she was exactly what I was about to say. Oh, man. All right, a little first of all, of course, thanks for coming on the show and just chatting about everything from what you're doing in the outside world and kind of your career, and appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Last fantastic age of social medias and all of that good jazz. So do you have any social media that people can follow keep up with?
Well, you've always heard that term in wrestling, "Oh, this guy's old school," or not. I'm still old school. If I have to sit on the computer, I ask my 9-year-old boy. So I don't have Twitter. I have an Instagram. I just have, a regular Facebook account that I just stay tight with my wrestling family and personal shoot family. So I don't know how to begin the social media thing.
That's okay. I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. Well, hey, hopefully...
I just tell people to look out on the flyers, the posters, because you almost see me on every one of them. At the bottom of those cards, you'll see, and many more. I'm on it every time.
And many more, that's right. Oh, gosh. Well, hey, first of all, I guess I want to thank you again for taking the time today to talk to us. It's 7 p.m. on a Friday night, so we definitely appreciate that. And of course, hopefully we'll be able to see you out there in the circuit. Here coming up in the year, it'll be pretty cool to see Judo Master back in action. But definitely thank you a lot on here, and of course, for everybody who's listening, keep an eye out for him. You probably want to see him, guaranteed. And of course, go out there and support independent wrestling. Is the lifeblood of wrestling, of course. But
Only thing is just sometimes it takes one person to badmouth people. I know that people great product. I support them 100%. Up in Michigan, CIW was a great promotion that, I know folks cut back on, but, ever see a CIW event in Michigan, great product. Just everywhere you go, just support the promoters, because they don't see the end. They understand when a hothead who thinks they're best shows you, you're hurting the business. Support these pro wrestlers, support these promoters.
You've heard him here on the Dave Dynasty Show as a guest and as host of the monthly Graham's Gallery episodes. And now you can hear his stories. You can own a copy of Confessions of a Big-Time Wrestler, the audio book from Dr. Jerry Graham Jr., former multi-tag team champion in WWA and owner of Bruiser Bedlam. You can hear all of his encounters with the various wrestlers, places, and promotions he's worked as he tells about his colorful, long, and illustrious career. You can have your own copy for only $25, and that includes shipping and handling. It's very simple. Go on Facebook, look up Jerry Jaffe, Jaffe, send him a private message, and make arrangements to purchase a copy of Confessions of a Big-Time Wrestler now. You will not regret this purchase. Special thanks to Christopher Michael Lotus and Brad Anderson for coming on and doing those interviews. Thanks to Ike Isaacs for handling those and taking care of the grunt work there and talking to them. Very much appreciated when Ike does those interviews. And thank you for joining us and listening, as you do every week, I hope. Don't miss an episode, right? However you listen to us, whatever platform, and we're on all of them, right? Any of them that you use, more than likely we're on it, including now iHeart Radio, as we announced a couple weeks ago. But whichever way you choose to listen to us, please make sure you subscribe to us so you don't miss an episode. You get us every week, giving you the best in Midwest pro wrestling, past and present, and future for that matter. So make sure you subscribe to us, and whichever way you do, make sure you're liking the episodes and sharing those episodes on your social media and help getting some more eyes and ears on us. If you use like iTunes, make sure you go on and rate and review us. That helps us get some exposure, helps us grow. It's a very, very easy thing for you to help do. It does not take long, so help us out there, right? We appreciate it. We appreciate when you can take a minute and do something like that for us. Speaking of social media, make sure you follow us on all forms of social media. You can go to davedynasty.com. There are links at the top of the page for all of our social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, etc., etc. Go to all those and either subscribe, like, follow, whatever it may be, so that you don't miss a thing. We're always sharing things, sharing newspaper clippings, videos, television episodes, all kinds of things. It's not just these podcast episodes that we're sharing out there. Lots of pictures and things that I am sharing all the time relating to primarily Midwest wrestling, right? There's always some other things that trinkle in there every now and then. Trinkle, I don't know if that's a word, but anyway, it is today. So make sure you follow us on all those forms of social media, so that you don't miss any of that. And make sure you keep supporting the show on all those platforms, as we said, and help keep the show free. And there are really 3 ways that you can do that. Go to PROWRESTLINGTEES.com/TheDaveDynasty and buy a shirt. We have some cool shirts. We have the show logo shirt, the Midwest Express shirt, and of course, those exclusive shirts for Dr. Jerry Graham Jr. and Izzy Slapowitz. Those are all there. Very, very cool. Make great presents and gifts for the fan in your life or yourself. You can get one real quick before Christmas. Last orders here. So go do that. That helps us tremendously when you buy a shirt. Or you can make one-time donations to the show at paypal.me/TheDaveDynasty. And it can just be $1 or $2, whatever it takes. Every little bit adds up and helps keep the show running and rolling for free. And if you'd like to make a monthly contribution, go to patreon.com/TheDaveDynasty. Again, if a buck or two every month really goes a long way in helping us pay for all of our hosting services, for the website, keeping our equipment upgraded and running, for helping us with when we go to events and things, and to reach out to some of these guys. Some of them, we like to meet face to face and different things. So that helps us get out there and do this thing. So just, even if it's just a couple bucks, don't think I can't give much. It won't help. Anything you can give will help. We have a lot of great episodes coming to you. We've wrapping up 2018 here, and we've done some great interviews, some great shows, had some very, very amazing guests. We like to hear from you on what your favorites were. Just go on our social media. I put some posts out there, but just comment anywhere you like. Tell us what you liked from this year, who we had on, that you enjoyed the most, and what episodes were your favorites. That kind of feedback really helps us shape what we do. Next week we have a really cool episode as we bring you a very Dynasty Christmas 3. Now, in the past, parts 1 and 2 were these goofy things where I did some songs and things, and I'm done with that. I'm not doing that anymore. No more song and dance from Dave. I'm going to spare the world all of that. If you want to hear all that, you can go in the archives and listen to more than enough of that. But what we're going to do this year is we're going to talk about the WWA Indianapolis Christmas shows that ran for about 17 or so years, right either on or right around Christmas. And again, this is going to be it's going to be me talking about these shows, the lineups, some thoughts, reflections, and notes on there. It's going to be kind of just a cool retrospective as we look through. Kind of similar to what we did when Bruno Sammartino passed. We looked at Bruno in the WWA, and everybody loved that episode. They liked all that information and that going back and looking at things, that themed episode. And we're going to do that. We're going to talk about WWA Christmas shows. And corresponding to that, when that episode's released, again, stressing that you need to follow us on social media. On Facebook and Twitter, we will be releasing, putting out there, all the newspaper clippings from all those shows. So we will release the episode where we discuss these shows, and then on the social media, we will release the newspaper clippings showing the ads, the articles, the results, and everything else from these shows for you to see, to correspond and go together. It kind of gives you the full effect of these events and how cool they were, and how much how much Christmas shows are missed. I think that they were the cool thing, and they don't do them anymore. Coming up right after the first of the year, we will also be doing the Midwest Year-End Awards show with Andy from The Road Home from Wrestling and Chad from MidwestTerritory.com. Make sure you check out both those guys, their site, and their show there. The show there. We were going to try to get it done before the end of the year. Dave's just been super busy, and I got so much going on. I apologize to them for kind of pushing this back. The response has been great on the voting. It is closed now, but we had an unbelievable response. We literally had 4 times the amount of response that we did last year. That's a good thing. That shows the growth and the interest, and I love it. So that show will be out right around the first of the year, probably in 2 weeks. We'll have the Christmas episode next week, and then the following week we're going to try to get that 2018 year-end awards show and reflection in. It's going to be good to work with those guys. They go to a lot of these shows. So when we discuss these things and discuss these wrestlers and discuss these matches, they'll be able to give you a lot of first-hand account of those, and that is very, very cool. And plus, in 2019, all your favorite types of things. Lots of legends that I have coming on. There's lots of guys that we've got set up to record with that will be on. Lots of current stars, young guys coming up. Plus, of course, more episodes of the Graham's Gallery with Dr. Jerry Graham Jr. Plus, historical episodes about the WWA, Detroit, AWA, specific wrestlers, lots of things like that, because we know you love them, and I love to do that. That is where my heart and soul is in wrestling. So you have all that to look forward to in 2019. But again, give us the feedback. Tell us what you like. Do you like the historical episodes? Do you like the legend interviews? Do you like the Graham's Galleries? Do you like the young guys? Tell us what you like, and we'll try, if we get enough feedback and response, we'll try to give you more of it. This is we like to give you guys what you like to hear. A lot of this is my personal mission to help preserve and promote Midwest wrestling, because I think it really needs to be done. But we want to make sure it's enjoyable for you. So give us that feedback. And if you got any suggestions, then feel free to give us that too, right? We're always accepting constructive criticism on things you would like to see added or taken away, or any thoughts and ideas you have out there. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up. We will be back next week for that WWA Christmas episode, a very Dynasty Christmas 3. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.